Need your daily fix on mixed martial arts?
We're going to kind of recap Bellator 155.
From UFC 198.
Who's who?
Kind of a controversial decision.
And who's not?
I couldn't figure out why, and then it hit me.
Well, don't you fret, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your daily dose of MMA podcasts. Everything from the UFC, Bellator Fighting Championship, Extreme Cage Fighting, Invicta Fighting Championships, and so much more. Join us as we talk about some of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. We've got you covered here on Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnel De Leon, and as usual, I hope you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, I hope you are safe and healthy during a time of major uncertainty. And here in 2020 now, as of June 8th, as I am recording this, you know what, California, New York, everything is slowly reopening up here at the States. And you have Florida, they're gonna be hosting an NBA tournament coming up by the end of next month. And we're also getting reports that that Florida's opening up, California's opening up, New York is opening up, Nevada is opening up. Basically, sporting events are essentially coming back here because at the time of this recording here, being a resident of Southern California, coming in from our California governor, coming up in this Friday, so it's about 5 days from now. So 5 days, 3 to 5 days. So about 3 to 5 days from now, sporting events will be considered, actually happening and are being made public. Now, sporting events can't happen to an actual audience, but sporting events can indeed happen. So, let's say a basketball team or a baseball team or a football team, they can have an event happening. Like the Harlem Globetrotters can face off against the Washington Generals in a closed facility like the Honda Centers or Staples Center, but they just can't do it in front of an actual live audience. They can go pre-record their shows and have it go from there, or they can do a live show with no audience, which leads us to UFC 250. Now, before I get into towards specifically Felicia Spencer versus Amanda Nunes, which was the main event of the fight, which was the main event of the night. A really enjoyable fight, in my personal opinion. A lot of people didn't like this matchup of Spencer versus Amanda Nunes, but I'm going to get into it a little later here. But it is noted that UFC is pretty much on track to being back to how it is. Dana White, in the post-fight press conference, did in fact say that Fight Island will be operating early to mid of July next month, and we don't know how, and he says he's expecting 3-4 events happening in Fight Island. Not only that, things are clearing up for Dana White. So initially, when the coronavirus started spreading and started happening, and as it became a pandemic globally, they were pushing towards shows happening in the Jacksonville, Florida area. In the Florida area, Jacksonville, Orlando, the state of Florida can pretty much allow events to happen, allow sporting events to happen. And now, other than Florida, we have Nevada. And because the Nevada State Athletic Commission were able to, okay, we can have combat sports happen in Nevada, we got combat sports back. Boxing is allowed in Las Vegas. Mixed martial arts is allowed in Las Vegas. As of right now, at the time of this recording, only mixed martial arts shows that have been announced to officially happen in the Vegas area will have to be UFC. I'm still waiting on the PFL. I'm still waiting on Invicta on what's going to happen there. But right now, I'm happy to see mixed martial arts come back into Las Vegas. It was a big thing. One interesting note about the event itself, UFC 250, was the fact that the octagon was significantly much more smaller than the average octagon here. This isn't in some huge stadium. It takes place in the UFC Apex facility building, and the octagon looks so much significantly smaller. And the distance between, because when the referee says, "Okay, ready, fight on," you see the two fighters squaring off each other. When they are back in their corners, the distance between the both fighters is very staggering. And I don't know, for me, that would completely mess up my game if I were boxing again, and I were to box in a ring or an octagon of that size. It would definitely mess up my mentality as it pertains to striking. And so in this card here, there was a lot of grappling. There was a lot of clinching happening. There was a lot of close quarters 50-50 scenarios happening where both fighters were duking off. There was very little to few passive fighting that was happening. Even in the last UFC event, which was UFC Fight Nights, there was very few grappling. I mean, there was very few striking that happened that didn't lead towards a clinch and lead towards grappling. That's what I'm saying. There wasn't that much poking. In a normal UFC octagon ring, you've got a lot more poking happening here. Here, since the distance between the both fighters is a lot more smaller, less poking, and more opportunities to go clinch. Now that's out of the way, now that we know that the octagon is different size, and also we are going to expect more mixed martial arts events happening for the UFC coming in Las Vegas, or Florida, or, anywhere, because California and New York are reopening up this week. I think things are going to go back to normal as it pertains to sporting events. And so let's talk about the very, very dominant victory, which was Amanda Nunes versus Felicia Spencer here. So before the fights, Amanda Nunes won. Amanda Nunes steamrolled Felicia Spencer in every single aspect of the fight game. Though, huge respect points for Spencer. Really did. Coming to the fights, everybody was doubting Felicia Spencer. And I was the one person who was like, okay, Spencer, she has a chance to go toe-to-toe against Nunes. She's going to scrap with her, and she can definitely go far. I really don't... I feel like if Spencer can come away from the first round against Nunes, I feel like she can make this a 5-round fight. I really believe that. Because if you look at Felicia Spencer's performance against Chris Cyborg, she's a warrior. She really is. She is a warrior who doesn't give up, and she took the absolute worst from Amanda Nunes. We saw the complete Amanda Nunes fight game. You've got the boxing, you've got the clinching, you got the leg kicks happening, you got the wrestling, you got the jiu-jitsu. Amanda Nunes pretty much fought the perfect fight against Spencer. And there's nothing Spencer could do. There really wasn't. There's an interview by Brett Okamoto at ESPN, and he had an interview with Felicia Spencer 2 days before the fights. And you read the comment section. All the comments, and even the reporters and analysts, they're all saying, what's next for Nunes after Spencer? As if we all know Spencer was not going to win Nunes, was going to go defeat Nunes. Now, I thought it was like a small percentage, like it was like a 1% chance of Spencer defeating Nunes. But you know what? She had a really tough fight. She had a really good performance. Spencer was a tough fighter. She went all 5 rounds with the GOAT, with the greatest UFC women's fighter of all time. She went 5 rounds with her. She didn't give up. She kept pushing through. Felicia Spencer, even though she was getting beat up a lot every single round, she kept pace. Spencer kept a consistent pace in her fighting. She was getting beaten down very badly, but it never looked like that she was never not trying. That's what I'm saying. There was never a scenario when I saw Spencer getting beat up that I imagined Spencer being like, okay, I can't win. I give up. Instead, we kept seeing Spencer keep going at it. We really did. I kept seeing, even the analysts and commentators, even Dana White himself said, oh wow, I really wanted Felicia Spencer's cornerman to go give the towel. Throw in the flag for Spencer, because there's no reason why Spencer should continue fighting after the 4th round, considering the fact that Spencer has been losing every single round. And there's absolutely no reason why she should fight a 5th round, since it's very obvious. I'm not saying there couldn't be surprise victories happening. Like, for all we know, Spencer could have. She could have went with a random submission move on Nunes in the final 10 seconds of the fight and win. But that didn't happen, nor was that a very likely scenario of happening. So the cornerman should have thrown in the towel, but I respect the heart and the guts Spencer had as it pertains to fighting Nunes. And here's the thing, Spencer fought exactly the way how I thought Spencer should have fought. Without doubt. The only way Spencer could have won the fight against Nunes was through wrestling. Spencer's best skill set is her wrestling ability, and she's improved significantly a lot in terms of boxing. I think, here's the thing, 2 fighters that have another fighter with a very similar background as it pertains to Spencer would be Carlos Esparza, this grapple-heavy fighter who develops strong hands, but I think Spencer is far ahead than Esparza in terms of the striking category. So I'm happy to see Felicia Spencer improve. Spencer fought the right way against Nunes. She fought in with the right strategy against Nunes. Here's the thing. Felicia Spencer's kicks were doing a work on Nunes. There was one aspect to the fight game that Nunes didn't have over Spencer, and they're leg kicks. Because by the beginning of the second round, Nunes started kind of limping a wee bit. Started limping, but Spencer decided to stop throwing those leg kicks because in order for her to continue pushing for those leg kicks, it's going to lead towards a jab from Nunes. And a jab from Nunes, like, most people will get knocked out for that. That's how tough she is. And so you're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back right after the short break here, discussing UFC 250.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And welcome back. So we're discussing UFC 250. Amanda Nunes versus Felicia Spencer. What happened? Well, Nunes pretty much She stomped Felicia Spencer for all 5 rounds in every single aspect of the fight game, with the exception of leg kicks. I have to say that for that. So what's next for Nunes? Well, generally most people were throwing Valentina Shevchenko's name out there. If you type up on YouTube Amanda Nunes or Felicia Spencer or Valentina Shevchenko, you're going to see Valentina Shevchenko's name always pop up as being a potential matchup against Nunes. And the reason for that is because for Weili Zhang, who is another name who's been thrown out there, Weili Zhang is too small to go compete against Amanda Nunes. Weili Zhang being the women's strawweight champion, she has to go bump herself up by 20 pounds, which is a lot. It really is a lot if she were to compete in the featherweight division. And that's just too much. That really is just too much for Weili Zhang. And it would put her at a disadvantage against somebody like Nunes, because Weili Zhang is I say she is the most strongest fighter in the women's strawweight division. She's the most physically dominant fighter in the women's strawweight division. And then you have to bump her up by 20 pounds. Yes, she'll be a lot more stronger, but now she'll be fighting at a division and fighting at a weight class that she's not really used to. So right now, Weili Zhang versus Amanda Nunes, that fight hasn't really been talked about that much, except coming in from Dana White's camp. So the other name being thrown out there is Valentina Shevchenko. Valentina Shevchenko versus Amanda Nunes, I would enjoy that fight, even though Nunes has already defeated Valentina. The reason why, and that's the reason why Dana White is kind of iffy on that. Even though a lot of people want to see Valentina versus Amanda Nunes again, Dana White's saying, okay, Valentina already lost to Nunes, so there's no point again doing that. Also, this is Dana White's logic, Nunes is currently a double belt champion. If Amanda Nunes were to fight against Valentina, that fight has to be for the flyweight belt, and then that would lead to Amanda Nunes holding 3 different belts from 3 different divisions. And as of right now, the featherweight division is a complete mess. Other than Felicia Spencer, who else is left in the women's featherweight division? It's Megan Anderson. And we don't know when Megan Anderson is going to get her opportunity to fight against Amanda Nunes, because there's a lot more other names, a lot more bigger names than Megan Anderson to go fight against Amanda Nunes. Is there any other big name in the women's featherweight division? No, not really. It's Megan Anderson and Felicia Spencer. Now we could see a potential Spencer versus Megan Anderson fight coming up in the future, and if that fight turns out really well, we could see Megan Anderson possibly fight against Nunes. That is definitely a possibility, but no, that is just a possibility. The likelihood of that happening, I don't really think so, because even though Amanda Nunes has been a double belt champion for the better part of almost 2 years at this point, she's only defended the featherweight belt once. She's held 2 belts, but for the most part, I think she defended the bantamweight belt 3 times, and then defended the featherweight belt once. So when can we expect, once again, a featherweight championship bout? It could be 2 years from now on. It could be a year and a half. We don't know. And now we're hearing rumors that Amanda Nunes could fight somebody else in another division. She could be a triple belt champion. What's gonna happen then? So, what I would personally like to see, this is my personal viewpoint on this, in that I would like to see Valentina Shevchenko versus Amanda Nunes, but not for the flyweight title. Do it for the bantamweight title. I personally have the viewpoint that Amanda Nunes fights a lot more better at featherweight than she would at bantamweight. And Jermaine Durandame taking advantage, because when I look at, even though Jermaine Durandame is, in my viewpoint, a much higher tier fighter than Spencer, but when I see Amanda Nunes fight against Spencer at the featherweight weight class, she felt a lot more smooth. She felt a lot more clean. Her movement was a lot more crisp. It felt a lot more better. I just felt like I looked at Amanda Nunes coming into the octagon at featherweight, compared that to her bantamweight. It's night and day. It really is. I feel like the best fighter, the best version of Amanda Nunes would have to be Amanda Nunes fighting at featherweight. And then the bantamweight division is already deep. You could build that entire division around Jermaine Durandame if she would have won and defeated against Amanda Nunes. So what's going on? What's going on with these women's divisions then? There is such an obvious power creep between fighters who are the top 3 or top 4 in these women's divisions, and then compare their power creep to the actual champion, Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko, that you're now thinking, well, no one expects Valentina to lose her belt anytime soon. She's not gonna. I could imagine, like, Chukagian already lost to Valentina, and then she was supposed to fight against Johan Calderwood, but Johan Calderwood and Valentina Shevchenko, they had to call off that fight because of both coronavirus and also film shooting and injury. And even then, if Johan Calderwood were to fight against Valentina Shevchenko, well, most people would predict Valentina Shevchenko winning that fight. And that's not me and other people disrespecting how good a fighter Calderwood is. It's just we really believe Valentina is that much better. So if you look at the women's divisions here, who are the 3 best fighters? Valentina, Nunes, and Weili Zhang. Weili Zhang is busy. Weili Zhang is really busy right now. She's got a lot of She's got fighters prepped up for her in the women's strawweight division. Dana White himself said that there's more of a likely chance of us seeing Weili Zhang versus Amanda Nunes than we do Amanda Nunes versus Valentina Shevchenko. And even then it's complicated, because let's look at who Weili Zhang has. She has Jessica Andrade, former champion. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, close fight. That fight could have gone either way. Rose Namajunas, former champion, had one of the best runs ever at the women's strawweight divisions, and the best version of Rose Namajunas has a chance against Weili. She really does. And then what else after that? What else? I really can't think of much here, because from that point on, then you have fighters like Nina Ansaroff, Tatiana Torres, Michelle Watterson, Claudia Cadella, Carla Esparza. Though that tier of fighters are going to come into a fight against Zhang Weili as the underdog. But if Weili Zhang were to fight against Amanda Nunes, then Weili would be the underdog in that fight. There is such an obvious power creep in tiers between champions and fighters. Well, that's why they're called champions, right? But it is such a significant difference here that during Amanda Nunes' press conference, and when people were questioning Dana White on, hey, what's going to go on? What's next for Nunes? What's next for Nunes? She's the all-time great. She's the greatest of all time. So far, only champions are being thrown out there. That's a weird, sad reality. That's a weird, sad reality. Is that we don't know who can actually take on Nunes. We really don't know. This has to be one of those scenarios where it's like Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm. People were really down to Holly Holm defeating Rousey, and then Holly Holm defeated Rousey. Huge underdog victory there. Something like that has to happen against Amanda Nunes, because Zhang Weili, she's busy. She's got a lot of fighters prepped up for her coming up in the next 2 years. Valentina Shevchenko, Dana White doesn't want to book that fight going down. And I think Valentina is comfortable in her position right now as a flyweight champion. Nunes has pretty much cleaned up the featherweight division. Only one fighter left standing is Miguel Anderson. She's got here's what I believe. I think Amanda Nunes' next best matchup here would have to be against Germaine Radamé. That's what I believe. I think the next best fighter would be Germaine Radamé. Then behind Germaine would be Valentina. And then Miguel Anderson. That's the only thing I can keep up with as it pertains to Amanda Nunes. I don't expect her to fight anytime earlier this year. I expect her being matched up with somebody by next year. We don't know what's going on right now with the featherweight division. The bantamweight division right now is currently kind of on hold right now. And also Dana White has said that as it pertains to the rankings and matchups of fighters coming up in the future, it's kind of complicated right now, and he doesn't know where to place his fighters. For instance, look at the men's flyweights and the men's bantamweight divisions. Their divisions right now are really confusing in that they don't have a champion right now, or they have an inactive champion. And Amanda Nunes, she's kind of an inactive champion for the other division when she's not training for that division. So there's some parallels to it, and we don't know what to expect. You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back right after the short break.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. So let's discuss probably one of my favorite fights of the entire night. It would have to be Cody Garbrandt versus Rafael Assunção. So the reason why this was, to me, my personal favorite fight of the entire night was because of the maturity and development of Cody Garbrandt, which I've seen in the past 3 years. Cody Garbrandt coming to this fight, he came in with a very different attitude and a very different fighting style. His training camp was a lot more different. Before this fight, he would primarily just train in Team Alpha Male. And I've said it before, I've said it in the past, in that I felt like the best way Cody Garbrandt can develop and become a better fighter is if he moved away from Team Alpha Male. And in this scenario, he didn't really move out of Team Alpha Male. He's training halfway with Alpha Male, then training the other half in New Jersey. And I'm really happy for Garbrandt. I really am. I always felt like Team Alpha Male was holding back Garbrandt's development. I really did so. And so when I heard that Cody Garbrandt is training against Rafael Assunção, and he's training with Team Alpha Male, also with a new coach in New Jersey, I thought, okay, Cody Garbrandt can finally be free. He can finally let go of the shackles, and he can develop and become a better fighter. The biggest issue with Cody Garbrandt is that he tends to fight overly emotional. And that if he gets clipped, he just loses it. He stops being. He's a really smart, quick fighter. He knows how to find angles. He knows how to find his shots. If you look at Cody Garbrandt's performance against Dominic Cruz, Cody Garbrandt, obviously his striking ability is an A. He has an A, without a doubt about that. He's one of the best strikers in the entire bantamweight division. He's one of the quickest and most. Cody Garbrandt on paper should be the best bantamweight. He should be. But then, psychologically, he holds himself back. He's got the skills. He's got the tools. It is when he gets flustered very easily. He gets tilted incredibly easily. To the point that this fighter, who's really tight in his strikes, who knows where to find his angles, all of a sudden starts throwing out these bombs and haymakers that are just not connecting. He's putting his arm. He stops blocking. He's moving with very little head movement, and he's just throwing his arms out there, hoping for a knockout. He's fighting very blind, and it's not good to look at. His form looks off, and that's why he got knocked out against Munoz. That's why he got knocked against T.J. Dillashaw twice. He was a much more patient fighter in his fights against Dominic Cruz. That was the best version of Cody Garbrandt we've seen. And then he's just being overly emotional. He gets tilted. He trash talks much more than he really should. He's saying all these weird stuff in interviews. He's trying to hype himself up and trying to upsell himself as if he's this big superstar. But then when it comes to actual fight time, he gets tilted very easily and he starts to make mistakes. And now that Cody Garbrandt, he finally gets a new coach in New Jersey. Sadly, I can't really exactly say his name because I kind of forgot about it. But it is a former fighter. So he went to New Jersey. He trained there. And it's in the UFC Countdown. They emphasize this a lot. In the UFC Countdown, where they're doing like 15 minutes or 20 minutes of highlighting a fighter, for the most part, Cody Garbrandt was emphasizing, okay, so I know what my mistakes are. I am making these obvious mistakes. I gotta place myself in a new scenario, place myself in a new atmosphere. I still love Team Alpha Male, but I gotta do something new. Because I've been doing the same thing over and over again for these past 3 fights, and I gotta try something to get me out of the situation. So he goes to Jersey, and when you look at Rafael Sanzao, he's one of the best bantamweights in the entire world. But he can go kick anybody's butt in the entire bantamweight division. He can go and fight against somebody in the realm of Aljamain Sterling and Corey Sandhagen because he's that good of a fighter. But when we see a Sanzao versus Garbrandt here, Rafael Sanzao coming into this fight, if you didn't know Cody Garbrandt was training in New Jersey, Sanzao would be the favorite. Rafael should have won this fight. Rafael could have beaten Cody Garbrandt if he fought the Garbrandt of a year ago. But not this time. Because this Cody Garbrandt is a lot more different. Most Cody Garbrandt fights start off with Cody Garbrandt fighting the smart fights. Then he's able to clip his opponents with a combo. And then he starts building himself some self-confidence. He's like, you know what? I can do this. I've knocked out many people in the bantamweight division. I can go knock out this guy. I was able to get a couple clean shots on him. Let me be a little bit more aggressive. A little bit more forwarding in my strikes. Put a little bit more pressure. And I'm going to win this fight. But then, that little pressure, that little aggression, becomes a lot. Because then his opponent pulls up a counter hits. Was it Pedro Munoz, TJ Dillashaw? Someone hits him with a counter strike. Cody Garbrandt gets flustered easily, starts swinging his arms wildly, and then gets himself knocked out. That's Cody Garbrandt fights in a nutshell. And now, in this fight, Cody Garbrandt, bell rings. He maintains the pace. He is consistent from beginning to end of the fight. He was able to knock out Rafael Sanzao, one of the toughest people in the entire world, with a flash knockout in the final 1 second. In the final 1 second of the second round. Cody Garbrandt defeated Rafael Sanzao with a KO at 4 minutes and 59 seconds in the second round. 5 minutes per round. Talk about patience, accuracy, and knowing when is the right time to go pick your shots. Cody Garbrandt laid this beautiful right hook, knocked out Rafael Sanzao. I congratulate Cody Garbrandt for that. Everyone on Twitter were talking about it. The analysts were talking about it. Commenters were talking about it. The Cody Garbrandt we're seeing right now is a mature, developed Cody Garbrandt. Because when he was striking with Rafael Sanzao, Garbrandt, for the most part, he was playing the roles of counterfighter. When he fought against Dominic Cruz, he was the counterfighter. Dominic Cruz was the one who was always trying to force his pace onto Cody. But then when Cody became champion, he started forcing everything. He started forcing his shots. He didn't force anything in this fight. Actually, I saw very little movement for Cody Garbrandt when it comes towards left and right. He was pretty much being a little bit stationary, only moving forward or backward. He wasn't doing that much, like side shuffling compared to Rafael. He was stationary. He was quick. He was doing a lot of head movements. Even when he was able to clip Rafael Sanzao several times in the fight, the old Cody Garbrandt would be like, okay, I clipped him, I'm going to go and press forward and continue clipping him. No. Cody Garbrandt, he clipped Rafael Sanzao with a good combo. Stopped. Had to refocus himself. Whenever it looked like that there was a moment that Cody Garbrandt, he was gaining the advantage and he was about to sprint or just run towards Rafael Sanzao, who was obviously going to counter hit him, you can hear the coaches You can hear the commentator crew being like, Cody, be patient. Don't get too reckless. This reminds me a lot of when Justin Gaethje was fighting against Tony Ferguson, because there was one round. There was one round in the fourth. It was in the fourth round. It was end of the fourth round, coming in towards the fifth round. In that the coach said, "Okay, Justin, it's nice once in a while to fight kind of reckless, but stop doing that. The last time you were overly reckless, you got stopped. Don't do that. Fight the smart game. Be patient. Know when to pick your shots." And then Gaethje, he pretty much TKO'd Tony Ferguson going into the fifth round after that advice. And the parallels between Justin Gaethje and Cody Garbrandt are incredibly similar. Two fighters constantly criticized about their fighting style, about fighting too reckless, not fighting smart enough, placing themselves in a bad situation just so they can go and come in for a highlight knockout. Yes, Cody Garbrandt is a highlight reel. But if he's not winning the fight, he'll probably be knocked out. The same thing applies to Justin Gaethje. He can knock out anybody. But the best Justin Gaethje is a patient Justin Gaethje. The best Justin Gaethje and the best Cody Garbrandt are the ones to know when and when not to strike. So I'm happy for Cody Garbrandt here. Do I expect him getting a title fight soon? Or his name being thrown out there within the same line as a Sanigan or a Sterling? Honestly, no. I think Cody Garbrandt has a lot to fight back from if he wants to go get the belt. You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back after the short break here.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back. So before the commercial break, I was talking about Cody Garbrandt versus Rafael Sunsao. I was talking about how impressed I was and really proud of Cody Garbrandt's development as a fighter. Now, let's go from one impressive performance in the bantamweight division to two really impressive performances also from two great fighters from a lot of fighters. So we have the front runner here in the bantamweight division, Aljamain Sterling. The middle ground person, Cody Garbrandt. And the up-and-coming star, Sean O'Malley. So, Aljamain Sterling's performance against Corey Sandhagen, no one would have predicted this. No one. I can guarantee you, when it came to Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen, nobody in this entire fight card... Okay, so, Sterling versus Sandhagen, their betting odds were super close. More than any other matchup in this entire card. And the reason for that is because it was hard to predict who was actually going to win this fight. The favorite here was Aljamain Sterling, and I was predicting Aljamain Sterling to go to defeat Corey Sandhagen. But I wouldn't be surprised if Sandhagen were to defeat Sterling. Because it was that close of a matchup here. And then when I look at this matchup, Aljamain Sterling, he defeated Corey Sandhagen in less than a minute and a half. 1 minute and 28 seconds in. And here's the thing, he had control of the fight and just 30 seconds into the fight. Because the bell rings, the two of them square off, and Sterling starts clinching with Sandhagen and works on him. This fight's only a minute and a half, so he was able to do this so quickly. So, fight starts. Two of them already gauging each other out. Sterling comes at Sandhagen, brings him to the cage, takes him down, works his way to the back mount position. Then working from back mount is able to go and win via rear naked choke in less than a minute and a half. Against Corey Sandhagen, one of the best fighters in the entire bantamweight division. He was ranked number 4 coming into this fight. He is 12-2. His record is better than Aljamain Sterling. Corey Sandhagen has a complete game also. this was as close as a matchup than any other fight in this entire card. Yet Sterling, he completely stomped Corey Sandhagen. Not only did he stomp Corey Sandhagen, now we've got a lot of discussion on talks going on if Aljamain Sterling really is worth a belt. Because that bantamweight belt right now, it's gone. Henry Cejudo vacated 2 belts. We don't know what's going on with that division. Dana White himself has said he doesn't know what to happen, how he's going to handle the bantamweight division right now. Because, coronavirus and a lot of stress and states reopening up. What's going on here? Incredibly impressive by Sterling here. He was able to work for a rear naked choke, barely throwing any strikes. It was just primarily Aljamain Sterling's grappling ability on Corey. Amazing performance. Amazing. Then the other bantamweight bout here, which was Eddie Wineland versus Sean O'Malley. So first off, Eddie Wineland has a great mustache. Just gonna put this out there. I love his look. He looks like the Monopoly dude. Just give him a hat. He's got the mustache. He kind of has his face going. He looks great. But then his fight against Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley walked to it. So Sean O'Malley ended this fight with a walk-off KO. And 1 minute and 54 seconds in, Sean O'Malley was able to knock out Eddie Wineland with a jab. Not a hook. Not an uppercut. Not a clinch. Not some crazy kick. But through a jab. A jab with a whole lot of force in it, though. But still, Sean O'Malley's power game. Sean O'Malley is one of those fighters. He's unranked, by the way. Sean O'Malley is an unranked fighter who we all know has the fighter mentality and has the skills to become a ranked fighter. He is a couple notches below Cody Garbrandt and Rafael Sunsao. I think he is not that high tier enough of a fighter to be within the same realm as Rafael Sunsao or Cody Garbrandt, who are within the top 10. I would put O'Malley at number 12. I don't think there's a reason why he shouldn't be ranked and be among the top 12. And so I have here the top rankings for the UFC bantamweight division. At number 1, we have Marlon Moraes. Number 2, Aljamain Sterling. Number 3, Peter Yan. Number 4, Corey Sandhagen. Number 5, Rafael Sunsao. Number 6, Jose Aldo. Number 7, Pedro Munoz. Number 8, Jimmy Rivera. Number 9, Cody Garbrandt. Number 10, Rob Font. Number 11, Dominic Cruz. Number 12, Cody Stamann. Number 13, John Dodson. Number 14, Song Yadong. Number 15, Marlon Vera. Cody Garbrandt obviously is going to go higher in the rankings here. He came into the fight as a number 9th ranked fighter. Rafael Sunsao came in as number 5. Jose Aldo, he was ranked a lot more higher, but because he's been absent due to the coronavirus, his ranking has been plummeting. By the way, how I view this right now, I see Cody Garbrandt should fight against Pedro Munoz. I'd be interested in seeing a rematch between these two. The Cody Garbrandt we see right now is a lot more better than the Cody Garbrandt we saw last time. So I think it'd be a really interesting fight. And considering that the Cody Garbrandt stock has went up fighting against Rafael Sunsao, Pedro Munoz stock would also go up defeating against Cody. Even though he already defeated Cody Garbrandt, he defeated Rafael Sunsao, one of the best fighters out there in the entire division. So it would help him in his stock as well. And I think that'd be a really enjoyable rematch. I think Cody Garbrandt would instantly accept that fight, and I also think Munoz would also accept that fight. But what's going to happen with Aljamain Sterling here? So this is coming in from MMAJunkie.USA today. The UFC President Dana White says Aljamain Sterling will get a bantamweight title shot, but you'll have to wait for it. So he defeated against Corey Sandhagen with a rear naked choke Saturday night at UFC 250. The fight was Sterling's fifth consecutive victory, leading many question if it could potentially slide him into the next title fight at 135 pounds. At the UFC 250 post-fight news conference, White put an end to that question. The previously mentioned vacant title fight between Jose Aldo and Peter Yan will still happen next. That Matt Serra Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, White told MMA Junkie, well, you guys know what the next fight is, but yeah, he'll get the next fight after that. I think Jose Aldo versus Peter Yan is done. So, we got Yan versus Jose Aldo. And when I look back at the rankings here, Yan is ranked number 3. Marlon Moraes did lose to Henry Cejudo. So that's why Moraes is pretty much inactive at this moment here. But once he does come back, he's still number 1 ranked in the division. He can buy himself into a title fight easily. So you have Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo. Who do I expect to win that fight? It could go either way. I'm leaning towards Peter Yan. And the winner of that fight, who I expect will be Peter Yan, will fight against Aljamain Sterling. And that will be a big fight. I really believe so. I think Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling could easily main event any card in the UFC. And it would be an exciting, fun fight. I really do so. I expect Peter Yan to defeat Jose Aldo and then go match up against Aljamain Sterling. And from that point on, it could be anyone's fight. I'm leaning towards Aljamain Sterling for the most part there. And then once we go down to the rankings here, I'm surprised John Dodson is ranked number 13. And let's not forget, Dominic Cruz, even though he had a title fight against Henry Cejudo, he's outside the top 10 rankings, ranked at number 11. And Dominic Cruz is in a weird position in that it makes all the perfect sense for him in the world to go and be within the top 5 of the rankings. Because one could argue that it was not right or it was unfair for Dominic Cruz to go lose in his bout against Henry Cejudo. And considering the fact that Dominic Cruz has been gone from the fight game for 4 years and almost defeated Cejudo, Dominic Cruz can argue his way easily with logic because he's a really smart person that, hey, I deserve to be in the top 5 of the rankings here. But then what's going to happen to Dominic Cruz? Like, who could Cruz be matched up with? I think a dream matchup would be, in if Peter Yan were to defeat Jose Aldo. I think a dream matchup fight would be Dominic Cruz versus Jose Aldo. That, I'm going to throw my money to my TV or to my monitor. Yes, give me that fight. Dominic Cruz, Jose Aldo. I love that. Without a doubt. So another fun fight would be Marlon Moraes versus Corey Sandhagen. I think that would be a fun fight. I think it's a great opportunity for both fighters. Marlon Moraes being inactive as of right now, and Corey Sandhagen's loss against Aljamain Sterling. I think it would be a great fight for both fighters to go take. Now there's a lot at stake if you do lose, especially for Corey Sandhagen. But it's a great fight for him. It's a good opportunity for him. It's a good opportunity for Marlon Moraes, and I'm incredibly excited on what to expect for the UFC bantamweight division coming up in the next year and a half. I really think that there will be stability in both the men's flyweight and bantamweight divisions coming up in the next 2 years. That could be Aljamain Sterling, it could be Peter Yan, it could be Jose Aldo, but I'm excited for it. And so you're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. Coming back right after the short break here, discussing one of my favorite fighters in Neil Magny, right here at the GSMC MMA podcast. See you soon.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. So I'm discussing UFC 250, and from top to bottom, it's been a really fun card here. Great stand-up performances here by Cody Garbrandt, by Aljamain Sterling, and Sean O'Malley. The bantamweights did their part of the show, did a really great job. It was really fun. The bantamweights did their part into making a really fun show, and Mandy Nunes did what she was expected to, and that was to dominate against Felicia Spencer. But even though Spencer lost her fight against Nunes, huge amount of respect. Everyone now respects Felicia Spencer for her bout against Chris Cyborg, and now her bout here against Amanda Nunes. She can go toe-to-toe to them. Now, toe-to-toe to the point that she can go possibly win the fight. Not really, but she can go and handle 5 rounds of fighting against the most baddest woman in the entire planet, in Amanda Nunes. So I'm happy about that. But now let's talk about the one other fight that people are least likely to be talking about here, and that is Neil Magny versus Anthony Rocco Martin in the welterweight division. Neil Magny, one of my favorite fighters in all of UFC. I loved watching the dude, dating back towards his time in the Ultimate Fighter. Anthony Rocco Martin, a proper journeyman fighter. I know he's going to leave everything out there in the line. And so when I saw Neil Magny versus Anthony Rocco Martin, I was a wee bit disappointed. I really was, because it was 2 rounds of these two fighters. They're pretty much fighting the exact same way. Even though Neil Magny has a significant reach advantage over against Anthony Rocco Martin, he wasn't really utilizing it that much. And it became a clinching battle between Martin and Magny here. Because bell rang, and then they're both sizing each other up, trying to understand distance between each other. Then one of them would go in for a leading strike. They get to a clinch, they get to the cage, and then they switch positions in the cage several times. Maybe it's because we're fighting in a small octagon that these bigger fighters. Like Neil Magny, he's surprisingly a lot more bigger. Even though he's listed as a welterweight, he walks around normally at above 200. I say 215. And Anthony Rocco Martin also. The guy is jacked and huge. He doesn't look like he's a welterweight, but he is. So we got these two much more bigger fights. They're two biggest fighters in this entire card. And they're struggling trying to find distance with each other here in this smaller octagon, to the point now they have to rely on clinching and some grappling. Did either of them actually had one successful takedown? So Neil Magny had 6 takedown attempts. Anthony Rocco Martin had 2 takedown attempts. He got 1 takedown onto Magny, but then Magny stood right back up. In terms of total strikes, impressive showing here by Neil Magny, especially in the third round. So Magny versus Martin. Magny was slowly edging him out in the first and second round, but again, one could argue that Martin had the better performance, had the better showing in the first and second round, because when Neil Magny was officially decided as the winner of the fight by unanimous decision, Rocco Martin looked genuinely upset, and that he really felt like he should have won the fight. Even Joe Rogan commentary was talking about, well, I'm not the judge, I can't really judge that fight, but it was a close fight no matter what. But obviously Neil Magny won the third round, and I agree with Joe. First and second round, could have gone either way. Slight edge towards Magny. Third round, without a doubt, Magny won. Neil Magny decisively, unanimously, definitively defeated Anthony Rocco Martin in the third round. No one could argue Martin winning in the third round. So let's say it was even split. Let's say Magny and Martin, they somehow split the first and second round. Third round, Magny obviously won. There were 0 knockdowns here. If I look at the stats here, Neil Magny was 82 of 130 in terms of total strike percentage. Rocco Martin was 46 of 91. But then we get towards significant strikes. Neil Magny was 58% in his significant strikes, hitting 64 out of 110. Meanwhile, Martin was 37-82. So in every stats, with the exception being Martin getting the 1 takedown in, Neil Magny definitively defeated against Anthony Rocco Martin. Martin should not be disappointed in the fight. The stats say Magny won. In the eye test, Magny won. So I'm happy that Neil Magny was able to get a victory off that fight. He actually came in as the favorite, which is strange because Magny in his past recent fights always came as the underdog, because he went through a period of time where he was kind of a journeyman. He kind of is now a journeyman, but he was a heavy journeyman in that it was expected he would lose some of these fights. But now he's in a 2-fight win streak, and I'm happy for Neil Magny. And here's the thing, Neil Magny, even though he's outside of the top 10 in the rankings, he can definitely compete within anybody in the top ranks. He really can. I think he has the skills and tools to go and compete with anybody in the division. It is a matter of whether or not he'll get the opportunities to do so, because his past 5 years have been pretty disappointing. But this segues me into talking about the welterweight division. Dana White was bombarded with a lot of questions as it pertains to what's going on with the welterweight division. And Dana White got really uppity about it. And his response essentially was, I don't know. There's a lot of fighters, a lot of drama, a lot of fighters talking smack to each other. Connor Mcgregor's name is constantly being thrown out there. I don't even know what to believe at this point, because he's going through a second retirement right now. But his name is still being thrown out there by these fighters here. So let's look at the welterweight division here. Champion Kamaru Usman. We have Kamaru Usman. I don't know who Kamaru Usman's fighting. Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns bumped his way to number 1. He was barely in the top 10 beginning of this year. Now he's number 1. Congratulations. Thank you, Gilbert Burns. Thank you. You had a great showing in the year of 2020. Without a doubt, my fighter of the year, Gilbert Burns. He worked his way so much in the year of 2020. And here's the thing, We're only 6 months in. We're only 6 months into the year of 2020. For all we know, Gilbert Burns could be fighting against Kamaru Usman. But we don't know what to expect because Dana White shut that down, saying that he doesn't know if Gilbert Burns is the right matchup against Kamaru Usman, because Kamaru Usman says he wants to fight against another fighter, and Gilbert Burns doesn't have that much stock in him, and he was supposed to fight against Jorge Masvidal. We don't know what's going on over there. So, I'm happy that Gilbert Burns, among all the fighters here in the welterweight division, because there's a lot of drama for all these fighters. So, Kamaru Usman, champion. Number 1, Gilbert Burns. Number 2, Colby Covington. Number 3, Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal, he's demanding money, even though we now know from Dana White that 2 fighters who I've talked about extensively as it pertains to fighter economics have been Jon Jones and Jorge Masvidal. But according to Dana White, both Masvidal and Jon Jones just recently signed a new contract. Like, Masvidal has, I think, a 5 to 7 fight contract going on, so he can't renegotiate himself anymore because he already got his new contract. And I can't agree with Dana White here. You signed a contract. Okay, so Jorge Masvidal has said, I think in a recent interview with ESPN, they said that fighters should be making a lot more money. All right, then do a better job in negotiating. That's what I gotta say. Jorge Masvidal, he's asking for more money, but there's already a set price on how much money he should be making, considering that he already wrote out an agreement with Dana White. Would I like to see Jon Jones and Jorge Masvidal? Would I like to see them make more money? Yes. Would I like to see more UFC fighters make a lot more money? Yes. Then negotiate better. Reduce the amount of fights you need in order for you to renegotiate. Because Paige Van Zandt is going through this problem right now, where she's been stuck with this one contract for years, and she just wants to get rid of it. It's complicated. It's overly dramatic. Let's talk about the fight game here. And one fighter who doesn't seem like he wants to be involved in the fight game anymore. Number 4 ranked, Tyron Woodley. Number 5, Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards, he's been gone. I don't know where he's been for the past month. Wonderboy Stephen Thompson, he's been dropping down. Damian Maia, I thought Damian Maia retired. Number 8, Michael Chiesa. Number 9, Rafael Dos Anjos. I would like to see either of those 2 fighters be involved by coronavirus. Number 10, Nate Diaz. Just the welterweight division is just a complete mess right now. It's full of really good fighters. Like, 1 through 10, the welterweight division has to be the most stacked division in all of UFC, but simultaneously somehow the most, like, diva-oriented, most overly dramatic division out there. It's ridiculous. It really is. Coming up after the short break here, I'll be discussing these rankings and what's going on in the divisions. After the short break here, you're listening to the GSMC MMA Podcast.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores a goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And we are back. So I'm discussing the welterweight division. UFC 250 just happened. Throughout the entire podcast, I've been discussing the women's featherweight rankings, how complicated that is, what's going on with the women's bantamweight rankings, strawweight, flyweight, the women's rankings right now. Other than Weili Zhang's division, which to me right now is the most healthiest division of all of UFC, is the women's strawweight divisions. Other than that, the other women's divisions right now are kind of complicated. And the most complicated division right now on the men's side would have to be the welterweight division. And the reason for that is because if you look at the rankings here, the champion Kamaru Usman, and then 1 through 10, this division is stacked. It's really deep. Gilbert Burns has bumped himself up to number 1 after being outside the top 10 earlier this year. And he even moved up weight classes. That's impressive. But other than Gilbert Burns, every fighter in the welterweight rankings has some issue going on. Kamaru Usman, he's challenging Connor McGregor. By the Connor McGregor announced his retirements. So Kamaru Usman is challenging a guy who right now is inactive. I don't believe Connor McGregor is even retired in the first place. I think it's another act. This is the second time he's done this. He's threatened retirement several times. I don't believe it. He has a lot of money to sustain himself for his entire lifetime, for generations to come. And so I don't know what's up with Connor McGregor. So Usman wants Connor McGregor. Guess what? Connor McGregor, he's unavailable. Who does Usman want to face? He doesn't want to fight Gilbert Burns because Burns' name isn't as big as the other fighters I'm going to name right now. Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington. That could happen. That's a fun fight that could happen. Too bad Colby Covington is always in play character mode right now that absolutely no one can tell what he actually wants anymore. Jorge Masvidal, apparently he's declined a fight against Kamaru Usman. And then from Kamaru Usman's camp, we got Jorge saying something else. And then Jorge is now he's now renegotiating his contract with the UFC and Dana White. But Dana White is shutting that down, saying that, guess what? You signed a contract, so you have to fight X amount of fights for X amount of money. Jorge Masvidal is still continuing on trying to push for renegotiations. And until that happens, he's thinking of defending his BMF belt, which isn't even really a real actual belt in terms of divisional rankings. We got Tyron Woodley, who's pretty much in the downslope of his career. And Tyron Woodley, even though when he was talking about his last fight which was against Gilbert Burns, he said that we were gonna see the best version of Tyron Woodley. We were gonna see a motivated Tyron Woodley, and guess what? Tyron Woodley, he fought better. He fought a lot better than he did in his other fights. He fought a lot more better in his fight against Gilbert Burns than his fight against Kamaru Usman. But guess what? I don't believe in Tyron Woodley. I just don't. Tyron Woodley is focused on his musical career, his acting career, his journalism career. He believes in the Tyron Woodley brand, which isn't as big as he thinks it is. So I don't know what's up with Tyron Woodley. We have Leon Edwards. It was supposed to be Leon Edwards versus Tyron Woodley back at UFC London, but that fight got canceled. Coronavirus right now is being a lot more... Coronavirus right now in the States, at the very least, has been a lot less strict. There's a lot more leniency happening as it pertains to social distancing and businesses being opened up there. So we could see Leon Edwards fighting. But, his name has been gone for a while, so I don't know what to expect from him. We could see Leon Edwards versus Tyron Woodley. That could be a potential fight that could happen. And then you got Wonderboy Stephen Thompson. He's been out for a while. Damian Maia. I thought he was retired. RDA. I don't know what's going to go. I don't know. We could see Michael Chiesa versus Rafael dos Anjos. That'd be a fun fight. And we have Nate Diaz, who is one of the biggest names of all of the UFC, ranked number 10, and he's uninterested in fighting. And Dana White said himself, if you don't want to fight, you don't have to fight. And so we have all these fighters here who are aiming for that big fight, but when you have like 6 or 8 fighters who all want the top fight, then over half of them are not going to get a top fight. It's needlessly complicated, and the welterweight division is full of divas. Dana White himself has said that a lot of Twitter social media drama happening right now with the welterweight divisions. So I'm upset about that. I'm looking at the other UFC champions right now. John Jones, I don't know what's going on with him. We were supposed to see John Jones versus Francis Ngannou. That fight did not fall through. Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. That's a fun fight. Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker or Paulo Costa. It seems like he's active. Just right now, Israel Adesanya, he's really busy right now, currently in New Zealand. He's being involved as it pertains to his community and county with Black Lives Matter. So I'm happy for Israel Adesanya in that, but I'm unsure on what his status is right now as it pertains to being an active fighter. Israel Adesanya, in a recent interview with Ariel Helwani, has said that he feels like he's been reborn from this experience. That Israel Adesanya says he feels like he's getting a second win during his time as champion. He's incredibly motivated right now, and he's using his platform, even if Dana White doesn't like social media. Israel Adesanya is using his platform right now to talk in behalf of Black Lives Matter and the situation going on with George Floyd and global issues. So I'm happy for Israel Adesanya for being motivated yet again to go and pursue. He's being motivated to go fight again. So I'm happy for that. So we could see Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker or Paulo Costa. I say Paulo Costa would be the fun fight to see. Khabib Nurmagomedov. He said that he was going to go make a big return in September. And we were supposed to see Khabib versus Tony Ferguson. That's not happening. It's probably going to be Khabib versus Justin Gaethje. But we don't know what Khabib's headspace is right now because Khabib's dad is sick. And according to Khabib, he has friends and family members who are not only sick, but have also passed away in the past month. So we don't know what Khabib's status is right now. We just don't. Alexander Volkanovski, he's been gone a while because of the coronavirus pandemic. The division happening, the featherweight division has been pretty quiet for the most part. I'm pretty sure a lot of it pertains to, you know, the coronavirus and the reorganization of fights happening right now. There wasn't that much featherweight action happening before the coronavirus took over, and so there are a lot of other divisions that are not being taken care of before the featherweight division. Flyweight and bantamweight division, they're pretty much non-existent. They're non-existent off the basis that they both don't have champions, and we got fighters moving up and down the cards right now. The bantamweight division is also really deep, but it's an unstable division right now in that we don't know what to expect. The last fighter to compete for the title that's active right now for the UFC's bantamweight division is Dominic Cruz, and he's 11th rank. Just think about that. Good news though for the heavyweight division, in that Dana White is adamant that we are definitely going to see Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier coming up this summer. So I'm going to be really excited for that. Francis Ngannou is hiding in the background there, and then behind Ngannou is Curtis Blaydes and Derek Lewis, who I don't expect at all to take over Francis Ngannou in the rankings here. So it's going to be Ngannou versus either Cormier or Stipe Miocic after Miocic and Cormier 3. So the heavyweight division now is kind of healthy. I'm a little bit iffy on the heavyweight division once you get past Ngannou, because we got Curtis Blaydes, Derek Lewis, Junior Dos Santos, Rosenstrike, Alexander Volkov, Alistair Overeem, Walt Harris, Augusto Sakai. Augusto Sakai so far... So Sakai and Overeem are the only two fighters in the heavyweight division that's moving up in the rankings. That's very interesting to me, because for the most part, if you look at the top 10 here, it's 1 through 3. Or like it's champion Miocic, Cormier, and Ngannou. Then everyone else is scrambling. So the heavyweight division is healthy at the very top, but it's not healthy once you get past the third ranked fighter in the division. Coming up next week is another UFC Fight Night event, and it's headlined with Jessica Ai versus Cynthia Cabello in the women's fight division, and in the co-main event we got Carl Roberson versus Martin Vettori at the middleweight division. Bantamweights, we got Merab Devlashvili, it's hard to say his name here, against Ray Borg. Featherweight, we got Andre Philly versus Charles Jourdain. And at the bantamweight, we got Jordan Espinoza versus Mark De La Rosa. It's going to be a fun overall card. I expect you guys to watch it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And that does it for today's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I say thank you for listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps out. Also, if you please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.